Welcome to the premiere episode of Uncommon Sense. Why is it called Uncommon Sense? Well, it's a show about common sense, which has been pretty uncommon for the last few years. Common sense is defined as something that's so obvious that almost everyone can see it. But for the last 4 years, people have been ignoring the obvious solutions to our country's problems. Common sense has been the exception rather than the rule, which is how it's always been. For example, 4 years ago, the Biden-Harris administration tore down part of our border wall and invited the world to enter our country illegally. And they did enter it, by the millions. With this invasion came the overtaxing of our law enforcement, an increase in crime which made Americans feel unsafe, division among Americans over the problem, a housing shortage, and the administration made things worse by diverting funds that were supposed to help Americans and giving it to illegal aliens. If that wasn't bad enough, our government was even flying planes to foreign countries to pick up people and bring them to cities around the country illegally, bypassing the border and immigration laws. The solution to stopping this invasion was common sense. Close the border until we handled the problem. But for 4 years, common sense was not only uncommon, it was ignored. The solution to the heinous crimes being committed by these illegal invaders that were gang members, convicted murderers and rapists, and even terrorists, would just take common sense. Let law enforcement arrest and deport these bad guys. But again, common sense was not in the arsenal of the administration. Why would the Biden-Harris administration keep making things worse, instead of doing things that make sense to protect Americans? The common sense answer is, if they knew what they were doing was destroying our country, and they did nothing to stop it, then they must be doing it on purpose, and they did not want it to stop. Anyone who has really looked at politics for the last 50 years has seen Russia's Nikita Khrushchev's promise coming to fruition. He said that the Russians and communism didn't need to go to war to take down America, that they would do it slowly from within. Some call it the deep state, but whatever you call it, the rich power brokers behind most of the big decisions in Washington, D.C. have been fleecing Americans of their hard-earned dollars and, in return, brainwashing us into thinking that government was a benevolent big brother, without whose help we couldn't survive. They've been killing America by killing the American dream. They say, life isn't fair. You don't have the advantages that others have, and that's not your fault. Let us level the playing field. The American dream is based on, I am an American living in the United States with all the freedoms granted me by the Constitution. I can be as successful as I want to be, if I just work hard enough. Self-sufficiency is what America was built on. The dark state, the communists, the socialists, or as many call them, the Democratic Party, want to make everyone dependent on the government for everything, so they can control us more than they do already. The stark differences between the ideologies of Kamala Harris and Donald Trump were never pointed out more succinctly than when, during the campaign, President Trump asked voters if they wanted more of what happened in the last 4 years, or do they want to return to common sense? Close the borders, arrest and deport the bad guys, get rid of the literally millions of useless or counterproductive government regulations that make life in America harder and are ruining our economy. Keep boys out of girls' bathrooms and girls' sports. Quit trying to take away parents' rights to make decisions for their young children. That's what parenting is. Well, the list goes on. But it is all just common sense, which has been very uncommon in America and will be until the Trump administration can take over and get us back on track to being the greatest country in history.